Form 47 do not match or tally with the Form 45 results, the returning officers have wrongfully refused a recount of votes where the law mandates a recount. The returning officers did not allow the candidates or their election agents to be present when consolidating the results. So any unlawful order which has been passed by a returning officer can be reviewed before the Election Commission. The Election Tribunal, after hearing the parties, can order fresh polls in a particular polling station or order fresh polls in the entire constituency altogether. Post the elections, there have been a whole host of allegations of rigging. The Election Commission has a duty not just to ensure that elections are held, but that such elections are held in a free, fair, transparent manner and that they're held in accordance with the law. In some cases, there are allegations that the provisional consolidated results in the Form 47 do not match or tally with the Form 45 results which have been issued by presiding officers of particular polling stations. In other cases, there are allegations that the returning officers have not acted in accordance with law. The returning officers have wrongfully refused a recount of votes where the law mandates a recount. The returning officers did not allow the candidates or their election agents to be present when consolidating the results. The returning officers wrongfully tabulated the Form 47 results. These allegations are not minor discrepancies, and in many cases, the results in entire constituencies could potentially altogether be different. In certain situations and prior to the final declaration of results, the Election Commission has jurisdiction over certain matters. The Election Commission can review an order which has been passed by an officer. So for instance, if a returning officer has wrongfully refused to recount the votes, this is an order which could be reviewed before the Election Commission. In this regard, the law expressly states that where the margin of victory is less than 5% or less than 8,000 votes, a candidate has a right to request a recount. So any unlawful order which has been passed by a returning officer can be reviewed before the Election Commission. The Election Commission also has the authority, if after an inquiry it is satisfied that there are grave illegalities or such other violations of the law which materially affect an election result, to order that the votes in a particular polling station or in a constituency are recast. The role of the Election Commission therefore extends after the close of polls. The Election Commission has a duty where there are legitimate complaints before it to decide them quickly and to decide them in accordance with the law. Over the past year, a lot of questions have been raised over the conduct of the Election Commission in failing to hold provincial and national elections on time, in initially refusing to meet the President with regards to setting a date for general elections, in taking away PTI's election symbol, a decision which was then inexplicably upheld by the Supreme Court. Regardless, the Election Commission is a constitutional body which has a core function in a democracy. The Election Commission must ensure that the complaints which are pending before it are decided expeditiously and that they are decided fairly. Thereafter, the election tribunals have jurisdiction. A candidate can file a petition challenging an election before the election tribunal. In the case of the National Assembly, the election tribunal comprises of a judge of the High Court. The proceedings before an election tribunal essentially take the form of a trial with witness evidence, documentary evidence, submissions. Because the proceedings before an election tribunal essentially are similar to a trial, they often take a long time to conclude. However, there is precedent by the courts which states that certain preliminary issues can be framed before election tribunals. One of the preliminary issues which can be framed is with regards to recount of votes. In the present case, a lot of the allegations revolve around the Form 45 results, and therefore certain preliminary issues can be framed before election tribunals to allow the cases to be decided in a relatively quickly manner. The Election Tribunal, after hearing the parties, can order fresh polls in a particular polling station or order fresh polls in the entire constituency altogether. The election tribunals can also declare the election of a returned candidate void and order that another contesting candidate has instead won the elections, where the election tribunal is satisfied that another contesting candidate got more votes. If a person is then not satisfied with the decision of the election tribunal, it can file an appeal before the Supreme Court. Citizens have a right to be represented by their chosen representatives. If the people perceive that the elections are not free and fair, if the people perceive that their mandate has been overridden, there can be no stability. To ensure the moral authority and the credibility of any new government, the courts and the tribunals must ensure that the election-related cases are decided without any undue delays.